Okay, the inspiration for this video comes from Bill Gates, who made a presentation to TED, which is an organization that sponsors talks on interesting subjects, not unlike the idea of having a tea party to talk about interesting subjects. So you can find this by going to ted.com, www.ted.com, and then you go to the search engine there and you go Bill Gates on state budgets, and that gives you no results found. Okay, that's always the way it is. Bill Gates. And he's got 13 talks here, and the one that I'm most interested in is the idea about why state budgets are important. And here's his talk: Bill Gates, how state budgets are breaking U.S. schools. Now he's talking about U.S. schools, but quite honestly, how state budgets may be breaking the whole country, because state budgets are such a big part of the overall government spending, that is, state and local governments. So that's the inspiration, and my talk is going to be on this subject, and I'll take some slides from Bill Gates. I'm sure he won't mind. Okay, this is the first slide that I got from his presentation, where he points out that government receipts and spending are getting wider and wider apart. This is the deficit area, and you can see the spending here as projected, and then the revenue is going down. And he points out that it's an increasingly difficult picture. Our budget, our economy, gross domestic product in 2010 was $14.7 trillion. It's a big number. Now, of that, U.S. government spending is 36% of the gross domestic product. That's 36%. When you go to the next one, you see the revenue. The revenue is only 26%. So we see we've got a big gap there between 26% and 36%, and it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. Why have state budgets escaped intense scrutiny until recently? How could you have a problem like this? Now, that's a Bill Gates question, and his answer is that people simply aren't paying attention. He says, big money, little scrutiny. Let's put these numbers in perspective. You have the California spending, Microsoft spending, and Google spending. California, just one state's budget, is $101 billion. Microsoft, a flagship private corporation, is $38 billion, and Google is about $19 billion. So that just puts the state spending in perspective. And the local government is a significant part of that spending. Let's go back and take a look at the state and local government. You see, this part here is the local government spending. Local. So it's a big part of the share of government spending. It's a big part of this overall deficit. Microsoft and Google combined are $57 billion spending. California state budget alone, $101 billion. So that puts the government spending in perspective. Electric utility franchising is another perversion of the fragmented government in the region. Competition for new customers often results in sweetheart deals for new businesses.
We'll call the special meeting East Bay Charter Township Board to order for Wednesday, April 21st. If you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Public comment. Anybody would like to address the board, please stand up, give your name and address.
John Porter. My address is 1114.5 West Front Street, Traverse City. I used to be a resident here for 30 years. I was supervisor between 1980 and 92. And I was a director on the Cherryland Electric Board between 1993 and 1999. I don't think it's a good idea to allow Light and Power to expand in a tax-exempt status where Cherryland pays property taxes, and every dollar that goes into Light and Power from East Bay customers is a dollar less that Cherryland would have, and I think Cherryland covers most of the township. So it's really against the interests of the majority of the township to allow this kind of tax-exempt expansion. But really, what I think is terrible is that we have two tremendous organizations. Light and Power and Cherryland are both great organizations, and have them competing with each other, beating each other's brains out. And if you look at the people we have here, probably make $500,000 a year, you know, and spending their time doing this kind of thing is just tragic. What I think should happen to be done with it, you know, you look at all of these problems we have in this community, take the 5 urban townships and annex them to the city, start over. Cherryland should buy out Light and Power, or Light and Power should buy out Cherryland, one or the other, so they're not beating their brains out against each other. Sounds ridiculous, but if you look at what's going on with $8 million expenditure on that septage plant, it is ridiculous. You look at a wood-burning facility going in at the northwest corner of this township, Brown Bridge Pond being drained in the southeast corner of this township. There's no way in Hades would that happen if this was in the city. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, I guess I believe it needs to be fair. I believe in fairness and that we need to be on a level playing field, just like everybody else says. And it's just unfortunate that we have to be here, that an agreement couldn't be reached by the parties here. So.
Okay. Okay, any other questions from the board members? Okay. Then Jim, we're to the point now where we've discussed it. I guess the question is, if the board chooses to go with the franchise ordinance from Traverse City Light and Power, they need to vote on that. If they decide that they want the 411 or what Cherryland had proposed, the first thing we need to do is pass the hold harmless agreement, is that correct?
Yeah, the reimbursement and defense letter agreement. And I have immense respect to Mr. Doran when he says on behalf of Light and Power that there'd be no lawsuit. Understand, Cherryland is asking you to take a position that no other township in the state has taken. They've offered the letter agreement, and I'm telling you is what the duty you owe to your taxpayers would be to act on that. So if you're going to take that position, I am telling you, or strongly recommending, that that is the first item that you look
Okay,
at.
so, and then what this is referred to as a reimbursement and defense letter agreement.
It agrees, because obviously a lot of extra legal time has been put in this. That's one of the reasons it's taken so long. You're on cutting edge ground here in terms of dealing with an issue of this type. But in any event, Cherryland has agreed to reimburse the township the same amount which Light and Power has already reimbursed the township, which is $900, which is a very, very tiny step toward reimbursing us for the time that I've spent so far. Then it goes on to say that if a lawsuit was ever filed.
The franchise, there's no sense even looking at that because it doesn't pertain to what we have within the agreement, correct?
I mean, that's up to Light and Power, but it's my understanding, based on what they indicated, that
You're
the
not,
policy was something they considered inappropriate and that they wouldn't be asking for an extension, so I'm not sure it's fair to them to ask them to immediately respond.
First of all, I'd thank you for your serious consideration of these matters, but we withdraw the request for a franchise extension.
okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us down to public comment.
That's John Porter again. Hydropower is a good way to go. I'd like to see Cherryland and Light and Power work together. I don't see that really happening. But it would be nice, since they both serve this community, they could work together and do that. But really, a bigger issue, what's really heartbreaking is, boy, all the attorneys and the engineers are just sucking this community dry with technicalities. You got 40,000, and I apologize, Peter, I've known you for 30 years, and you're not like that in person, you know, right? But you're a nice person. Anyway, the point is, you got 40,000 people in the township surrounding Traverse City. You got 15,000 in Traverse City. This business about Light and Power, it's a business operated on behalf of 15,000 people. An annexation of the 5 townships would create a community of 55,000 people. There would be some clout there. You wouldn't have a whole bunch of attorneys all over the region bickering with each other at taxpayer expense. It's really something that should be considered. And a buyout of City Light and Power could put a lot of cash in the pockets of those 15,000 people. A lot of cash. And that's a separate issue. It might take longer to do. But these are big issues. And when I look at all of the time you spent on your septage plant with an $8 million facility that could have been handled for $1 million, if we were one community, when is the public going to get sick of paying all these taxes and not getting any results or negative results? And I think it's an issue whose time has come and it should be seriously considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, if there are no objections, we stand adjourned. Jack, you're not out to get rid of, township
Go ahead, Jack.
John Porter, former supervisor of East Bay Township, 1980 to 92. I thought I had 5 minutes. Is that possible to get a little extra?
Let's see where we can go to.
Okay, we're all politicians and we live in a democracy. As a democracy, it puts a burden on everybody for the government. And I think democracy shouldn't be a spectator sport. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Michael Bloomberg think it's worth their time, even though they don't need the money. So I really think that we should encourage people to get involved in the community. And I have given you an article that I wrote, letter to the editor. And my question is, if you could design a system of local government in the region, would you go with what you have today, or would you design something different? And if the answer is something different, how can we do that? Why can't we do it? We, the people, have to have a discussion about what's good about township government, what's good about city government, county government, road commission, health department, and so on. Just list all of the things that are good about it. Can we create something better than we have, taking the good aspects of each of those units of government? I'd like to see the county initiate discussions of this kind with people. And if it were successful to bring 5 to 7 townships together with Traverse City into one unit of government, it would take a big burden off this board. County Commission could get back to the statutory responsibilities that it has, be some relief to the budget. So, as costs escalate when you deal with multiple governments, you get bogged down with local rules and regulations. Even if you share a vision with somebody, like on a septic treatment plant, there was a vision. They planned that for 10 years. I was in a county commission meeting and it was discussed in 1992. It was planned for 10 years. And 10 years later, $8 million later, I would submit to you that it's no surprise that we ended up with a system that nobody agrees with, because nobody had the power to do it right. It's such a fragmented system. The prior system was better before the expenditure. We shouldn't let this lesson go to waste. It's an expensive lesson, and we should learn from it. I would like to see a system designed that's better and give the people a chance to talk about it. The grand vision is talking about all the things that government should be doing. I stood up at the first meeting of the Grand Vision at the Haggerty Center and I said, what good are all these plans if we don't have a government structure capable of implementing those plans? One administrator, one board, one attorney. If they don't get the job done, you fire them and get somebody else that gets the job done. You can't blame everybody else for what's wrong.
Let's wrap it up there.
Okay. I think I'll wrap it up on that point. I'd like to see you initiate conversation on this subject, not confrontational, but just what's the best part of each of these governments, and see if there's common ground to put something together. Thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time?
Thank you for the second opportunity, John Porter. I did look over my notes and I saw one item I didn't speak about. This idea of a merger of equals or a consolidation is not my idea. Pat McCafferty, 30 years ago, brought a speaker from Battle Creek to visit us, and he told us about Battle Creek. I wasn't real sympathetic. I was a new township supervisor at the time, so I was a township guy. But I did, over the years, get used to the idea and realize the tremendous savings. We built a water main from Traverse City limit to Acme Township limit through East Bay Township, 16-inch transmission main. And that was cut because of the political disagreements. But the revenue to East Bay Township is $1.1 million a year for that water system. That could be applied to the community's water system. It's a total redundancy of effort. That's $1 million a year That's just one business that we're in. What are your other businesses that could be sharing costs? You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars savings here in a year in the county budget, but I'm literally talking about millions of dollars. And the savings and the ability to serve the community would be great. One of the things that one of our speakers said at the old Regional Planning Commission meeting, we get all the county commissioners, city, township people all together in one room. He was the president of the railroad that served Traverse City, and he stood up and he said, this is going to be short. Let's think about the world that we're leaving to the young people coming up. And if this system that we have now with all the different townships and the city and the county and everybody providing government services that are a duplicate effort, if this isn't the best system that we can give down to the next generations, why don't we change it? How can we justify not changing it? That's my question, and I think you should think about that. Everybody should think about what this guy said. How can we justify not changing it, not doing it? At least give a try. I happen to live in China right now. I see that government operate. That's pretty efficient. They go into private rooms, decide what's to be done. They come out unanimously every time, and they do it.
Unanimously.
And they do it. And it's a tough business model to compete with. And if we can do it at the local level, maybe we can do it at the state level, maybe we can do it at the national level. But I believe it needs to be done, it needs to be talked about, and see if restructuring will help.